Here I'm going to share what it really takes NNAS, navigating BCCNM, NCAS, which is now Inspire Global Assessment, and also doing the NCLEX. Honestly, I had no idea what I was getting myself into because there was not much information about it online. I wanted to share my journey and hopefully it can inspire you to start yours, knowing that it's a lot easier than what it was for me. Hi IEN, my name's Lisa. I'm a registered nurse here in British Columbia and I have been since 2021. I am an internationally educated nurse. This means that I got my education outside of Canada. I had to transition my license and everything from my home country to Canada. Honestly, I was shocked at the process at the time, but please bear in mind, like, my journey is not how it is anymore. I'm so happy that they've made leaps and bounds in the process and making it smoother, just quicker, more funding is available, and it's just more streamlined. The newer IENs, thank goodness. IENs stands for Internationally Educated Nurse. For me, the process was a little bit crazy and it took a very long time because the pandemic was also thrown in there. So I want to give some grace in the way that everything went. But as I said, it's way better now. So I'm so happy for that, for the people coming through now. So when I first came to Canada, I actually didn't have the nursing process in mind. I actually just wanted to come and enjoy beautiful British Columbia. But after a while, I was like, it would be a shame to not do the thing that I'm trained to do, which is nursing. In 2018, September, I created my NNAS account. Now you don't have to go through NNAS anymore. It is one of the streams, but there are other ways you can get your education assessed, which is great, because this process took a very long time and it was very difficult, but I think it's a lot better now from what I've seen. In February 2019, I paid for my NNAS RN application. In April 2019, I actually added the LPN application. LPN is a licensed practitioner nurse, which if you're in the UK, this would be the equivalent to a band 4 instead of like a band 5 situation. So I was like, oh, let me just do them together because you never know, maybe I don't qualify for RN in Canada and maybe I could be an LPN in Canada. So I was like, let me just do them both. I think it was just a little bit more to add on the extra application. So I thought, why not? In August 2019, my NNAS dashboard had turned to ready to review, which I was so excited about. But then the report took so long to get to me. And there were some issues back and forth with NNAS because the way that they want your documents, they want it from your educational institute. So I was trying to have to liaise with them. The information couldn't come through me. It had to come directly from them. I had to send like a USB stick to my university. It was just a bit of a mess, especially with my experience piece, because it kind of asks you for your education, your experience, your clinical hours and things like this. And a big issue that I came into was that my experience, my employers didn't want to fill out the exact form that NNAS had, and they needed that exact form. So actually my NNAS report, my experience was not included, which was so annoying, but is what it is. I'm here now. So in January 2020, I got my advisory report for both LPN and RN. Now, after getting the NNAS, that is not the end. There's still a few more steps. You have to go through BCCNM, which is my licensing body because I'm in British Columbia, but each province has their own licensing body. So this is what I had to go through in BC. I applied to BCCNM the same day that I got my advisory report. And in February 2020, I was referred to the NCAS assessment, which is now Inspire Global Assessment. And this is an assessment that is a computer-based assessment. So this is the questions that they ask you on a computer. And then they have the SLA, which is the simulation lab assessment, where you have to go into Langara College. Our college is where it's put in BC, and you have to do like simulation environment. But this was all delayed because of COVID. But then by July 2020, I was able to complete my NCAS. And then I actually couldn't believe it. My NCAS results came back 13 days later. For me, this happened so quickly because they weren't actually putting many people through, because it was actually really challenging for people to come to BC to do the assessment. So there's only a small pool of people they had to assess. So once the assessment was complete, just so you know, this NCAS Inspire Global Assessment is not a pass or fail. It actually kind of rates you emergent, consistent, and undemonstrated. So there's kind of a range, and then there's different competencies that they assess you on. Maybe you're super emergent in one area, maybe you're super consistent in a different area, maybe you're undemonstrated in one area. So it kind of just highlights what you need to work on, essentially, to be able to be licensed at a Canadian standard. So September 2020 is when BCCNM acknowledges the receipt of my report. I was like, yay! Finally at the final boss level, let's say, the licensing body, BCCNM. And December 2020 is the decision letter. So you send all these things to the licensing body. I actually sent them my experience as well, and I sent them from jobs that I'd had, maybe references, just so they can make an informed decision. And drumroll, I had to do 2 transitional courses. So they put everything together, your NNAS, your results from NCAS, Inspire Global Assessments, and your education experience, put it all together to make this decision. Now there's different things that they might want you to do. What kind of decisions can they make? If you have to do like a full transitional education program, which is like a 9-month course, but you're full-time, they might ask you to do practicum, which is usually 3 months, a certain amount of hours. It just depends where the gaps are in your competencies. And in March 2021, I had finished all my transitional education, so then I sent back to BCCNM. Hey guys, I finished everything you asked for. Can I be licensed now? And then I got my provisional license. This is the thing, once you get your transitional education done, you can have a provisional license. So I was actually open to practice as a nurse in BC. Last hurdle for me was doing the NCLEX. So that was actually a little bit challenging for me because I practice as a nurse, and I think my issue with NCLEX is that it makes sense if you've been studying for it your whole nursing school time. In America, in Canada, you're kind of primed to answer questions like this. But for me, it was actually hard, especially going from being an experienced nurse to going back to textbook nurse. But I made it through. In June 2021, I passed my NCLEX on the first go, and I was able to get my full license. So just to reflect on this whole situation, honestly, it felt endless at times. There were document delays, the document misunderstanding, the uncertainty, the waiting. Also, the transitional education varies by province. What's asked for here in BC might be different, say, in Nova Scotia. Within this reflection, another thing I learned is that even though the waiting's frustrating, you can utilize this time to prepare yourself for these things that are coming up. So I just did like some studying in downtime whilst I'm waiting, and making sure I'm reviewing things that will help me in this process when I'm doing the licensing exam. At the time, they did not have any bursaries or financial help, but now they actually have like a BC Aid fund to help healthcare workers. So if you're planning to apply, please utilize this. I know they have it in British Columbia. I hope they have it in other provinces. Here's what's new. So as I mentioned, you don't have to go through NNAS anymore. That's not the only route. Now you can go through things like WES, which is the World Education Services. And if you're applying for residency here anyway, you might already have this. Reviews your education and if it is comparable to a Canadian degree or not. We also have ICAS, which is another similar to World Education Services. And then you can also go through NNAS too, which I know, yeah, as I mentioned, they have improved the process. Also, so you know, I'm not 100% sure on the prices, but I know they differ between provinces, so make sure you look up to where you're applying to how much it will cost. And then just be aware on wherever you're doing your assessment, what the format is. So the simulation lab, know how many scenarios you'll be going into. Make sure you familiarize yourself with all the things they have on the website, because they have a lot. The documentation that they'll use, they have like a run through of what the room will look like. And this is really, really helpful for you in your assessment. In the SLA portion, you'll have some like live actors, some mannequins. So just be aware of that. Okay, so I want to give you more encouragement to go through this process. As I said, it's a lot better than what it was, and I'm so happy that this is the case because Canada really needs nurses. They're trying to implement nurse to patient ratios and just to make it safer for everyone involved, patients, nurses. Honestly, me going through the process was really difficult because there wasn't much information about it. That's why I started my website. I also created the Nursing Trail Nursing Refresher, which is an online course you can do at your own pace just to prepare you for the NCAS. You can find it in the links below.